I'm sure.
Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast comes from two lifelong fans of IndyCar and other forms of motorsport. Before we get started, I got to introduce you to my co-host, Timothy Reiner. Tim, how are you, sir?
Daniel, I am so good this evening. How about yourself?
I'm good. You know, I actually refer to myself as Daniel, and then when I'm cursing myself, I'm like, "Oh, Daniel, what are you doing?" I actually refer to myself as Daniel.
Nice.
And I never introduce myself that way.
Well, there you go. Daniel Maldonado.
There you go.
On the other line.
Where's am I?
You have the appropriate hat on today.
I do have the appropriate hat on today. My Indianapolis Motor Speedway hat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't wear the
nice.
pre-distressed one. I'm wearing the regular one.
Yeah, it looks like you don't wear it enough. It's not.
I don't wear it
dirty.
enough.
It's a nice, clean hat.
It is. Just like the Rolex.
Very cool.
Hats, the Rolex 24 hats. I don't wear those that often either. They look brand new. Did you have a nice holiday weekend, Tim? Did you do anything fun?
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a nice time. How was yours?
Wonderful. Could spend some time outside. I did not take my bike, which I thought was going to be a mistake, but it wasn't. I ended up sitting at the pool with my darling bride for about 5 hours. I tried to get into the pool, but the pool was ice cold to the bone cold, and got out of that pretty quickly.
Interesting.
And then that was about it. So, you know, we did lots of walking, took the dogs and went walking around, went up to the beautiful Pentwater, Michigan to watch the sunset. And that was wonderful. Had a great weekend. Wonderful weekend.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
I rode twice this weekend. I did. So the bike got off the rack twice this weekend, which was nice. But it was a good weekend overall.
59 days, Tim, to our cycling event.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I need to be on the bike more often than that.
Ramp it up with Ernest. So
I'd be on it tonight,
Ernest is, but we'll be riding with Ernest.
Yeah. I better start fundraising soon.
That too. Hey, I'm excited about today's show. Before we get into this, I got a book from an author named Jeff Cowan, Pro Talk, and it is what I've learned from attending the Indianapolis 500. Right? What I've learned from attending over 40 Indy 500s is what this is. Lessons in sales, motivation, leadership, management, and life in general. So Jeff sent us an email, to our production email, and I got it, noted it, just kind of set it aside because it came in at sort of a busier time. And I heard Jeff on the podcast with Kevin Lee and Kurt Cavan talking about his book and his experiences at the Indy 500. And I thought, I've got that guy's email and he's offering me a free copy of his book. So I got a copy of it today. So thanks, Jeff. If you're listening, for sending that, appreciate it. Going to read it. I'm probably going to save it for when we go to Road America here in a couple weeks, because I'll be spending some time, relaxing on that one too. So looking forward to it. But I wanted to get that out of the way.
I had no idea.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Email, obviously.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, once I'm done with it, and we'll maybe we can have Jeff on. I think it would be fun. Talk to him about that. So
can't wait.
Hey, we're gonna do a little different format today because we had a lot of stuff to cover. I want to talk a little bit about the start of the 500. I want to talk about the yellow flags, and then we can finally talk about the yellow flags, the red flags, I guess I should say, and then finally talk about the Power 4 teams, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, right off the bat, this just came to me, kind of breaking news right before we hit record here. The Jewel National Anthem. Why are people having an issue with this?
I have no idea.
I thought it was really good.
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I really acoustic music, and it was very mellow. It was very
folksy.
To the point.
Yeah,
it was awesome. So I thought it was one of the best I've ever heard. So I'm just curious what people think. Seeing the article that I saw that said people disliked it and said it was almost a disgrace to the nation, I was like, come on now, it was really good.
Yeah, we got to stop using.
I think they always do an excellent job on everything leading up to the green flag.
Totally agree.
So that's stuff you got to watch, in my opinion, and stuff that I try to get people here to watch, but they didn't. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just very patriotic. I like it all.
I thought it was good. I had no problem with it. I like
Same
Jewel.
here.
It was good. It was kind of that's Jewel when first saw her popping up there on the screen
Yeah.
to sing the national anthem. I guess I didn't realize she was doing it, but I thought it was good.
I think
So stop complaining,
people
people, and
just need a
stop using the
reason to
word
complain.
disgrace. So I think that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I do too.
Right off the bat, the first thing that comes to mind, Tim, with this race right at the beginning is fuel save. And I am no fan of a fuel save race. I'm even less a fan of a fuel save Indy 500. Not happy with that start. What about you? I thought it was a little bit of a snoozer, to be honest.
Well, you got to try to stretch it as much as possible to get in your pit windows. So it's just fastest way around the track, I guess, when it comes to, taking a
Fastest
stop
way around
and
the
having
track
an
is
extra.
being slow.
Well, overall, when you look at the length of the race, you go, okay, how many you add a pit stop in versus, you know, um, running flat out. At one point they were running 207 miles an hour and they were just kind of all sitting there. Nobody was doing anything.
Yeah, nobody
So
wanted to lead.
yeah, nobody wanted to lead because they didn't want to burn more fuel. Then they started swapping positions. I think it comes down to maybe the aero on the car because you can't just get out front and pull away.
They did add some pieces to it, which, may or may not add drag, which could, impact your fuel economy. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit of that. I don't dig that though.
Yeah, I don't
What's
either. Like,
interesting,
I'd prefer.
just flat out.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
So
It's
it
racing, right?
was Pelot, exactly. Pelot and VK spent much of the opening laps trading the lead to help build their mileage. It really wasn't until lap 32 that somebody else gets into this game of leapfrog. And that was our dear Felix Rosenquist who arrived on the scene. Similar to this was not unlike what happened in 2022. The major difference here is it wasn't teammates because in last year's race, it was Dixon and Pelot who are Ganassi teammates. This year, it was BK and Pelot trading places to try to get as much mileage out of that first stint as they could. I thought, though, that it was interesting that a Chevy was helping a Honda or vice versa, right? A Honda was helping a Chevy, that they didn't find a way to pair up somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. You had a Honda driver in a Chevy car anyway, so I don't think there's that rivalry as much as
Who's
you
the
have in
Honda driver in the
NASCAR.
Chevy car?
Graham.
Oh,
So
don't make me say
one
anything
car helping
nasty about
another,
that.
but it's a Chevy versus a Honda. I don't think it has a huge impact, right? I think it's, we both need to make the mileage. And I think if you're the leader and you lift a little bit at some point, that driver in second has to go around because otherwise they're going to get passed and go to third and so on and so forth. So I think it's just a product of the racing as it is today with, the aero package they had and just how long the race is, right? When you look at it's 500 miles, you got to get to the end and you got to get there as efficiently as possible. So I think a lot of that is being nice and working together overall. We all know a lot of these guys are friends on and off the track. So I don't think it really matters that, Honda versus Chevy helping each other out. I think it's, hey, this is so-and-so. And, I have dinner with them every week. We're at the track or whatever it might be. And we're going to figure this out between ourselves.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I think the mileage looked pretty similar between the two manufacturers. I don't think there was a big difference. I think historically, we've always believed that Honda got a better gas mileage, fuel mileage than the Chevys did. Chevy might make a little bit more power differently than what than Honda does. So maybe that's what leads to that. In this race, I think it looked pretty even. I don't know that anybody really had an advantage over the other. I will also say, and I don't know that I'm going to say this right, and I've tried to think of how I was going to say this during this. It looked to me that the fuel mileage was equal this year to me, but what it looked like to me was Chevy somehow had an advantage in the corners. They didn't
Not scrubbing
look
as much speed.
that they were scrubbing as much speed in the corners. Okay. Here's why I didn't want to say this. Who was your pole winner? Pelot and a Honda.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm almost willing to look at that
by that
as
much.
Palou and a Honda, Chevy, Honda, right? And you're right, it was 0.007, right? I think miles an hour difference. So
Yeah,
that's
something
almost
like that.
down to the Ganassi preparation versus everybody else. And
Yeah.
that's could be what that is, right? Because especially we spent a lot of time on board with the Rahal cars, and those Rahal could have been set up there, but the Rahal cars looked like they were scrubbing a ton of speed in the corners. So, you know, for
Yeah,
what
they
it's
couldn't get
worth,
down the straight either, but yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
it just didn't look to me like Honda was as strong in some of those corners. You spent a lot of time in the corners on this track
Hmm.
in
More
fourth
than you
place.
would think.
Yeah, yeah, way more than you think. The race took off by what was precipitated. It was a yellow flag caused by Stingray Robb getting initiated in the art of downforce reduction due to a passing Indy car. Ray Hall passed Stingray, took air off his wing, causing him to drift up. Really, nothing Stingray could do at that point but ride it to the wall, baby. And he did. Afterward, when Stingray was checked out and released from the infield care center, he had some pointed words for Mr. Graham Rahal. Um, he didn't mention him by name, of course, but he said something to the effect of, "Oh, you hear the stereotype about certain drivers, and I guess they prove you right or whatever it is." Tim, it's Graham Rahal. I'm assuming the stereotype is he might be a little bit of a dirty driver. Tim, I've never, I would never feel that Graham is a dirty driver. Do you?
No, not at all. I don't think he's a dirty driver at all. I think
No,
he made the pass and Stingray wasn't ready for it and he got in the wake and was a little too close and it got away from him and he didn't back out and it couldn't back out, right? He'd take it
no,
all the way to the wall and it was a pretty big impact. So
yeah.
I think it's just a rookie learning how to drive on a
So do I.
track
Yeah,
in the IndyCar series and you just got sort of surprised by how big the wake was. So
yeah.
I think you would have experienced it during all the practice that happens in the month of May and in April, but maybe not to that extent. Maybe you're not as trimmed out. Maybe you're running a little more wing during practice than you are there. So yeah, didn't surprise me. His kickoff to IndyCar, Stingray Robs has not been great
It's
by
been
any means.
expensive.
So yeah, so that doesn't surprise me that that was
Mhm.
the situation there. So
Yeah. Grosjean was the next to bring out the yellow flag. Just got a bit in turn two. Unlike Texas, though, he wasn't all over the shop, using Dixon's phrasing, but he wasn't going to be in contention either, but perhaps would have been on deck for a finish, certainly better than 30th place.
hmm and Grosjean just has this knack for doing this in oval racing. Always getting the back end out, tapping the wall. Did it last year at Indy too, I believe. Was out kind of in the same
Same spot.
area. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's unfortunate. I guess I think it's a driver that's looking at it going, I'm trying to get a little bit more than what I should be getting out of this car, and you just take it just over that line just slightly and it snaps on you and you try to collect it. And just wasn't able to. So that was, typical Grosjean, I would say, on an oval. So no surprise from me when I saw that one too.
Yeah. Then came the big one, right? This is where everything the wheels come off, literally. Felix Rosenquist and Kirkwood. Felix um, got into a little bit of a wash, carried it up, hit the
Yeah.
wall, came down. Nowhere for Kirkwood to go there. Couldn't woe it up in time. Couldn't get out of the way. There's no steering, at 200 plus miles an hour, and that was it. I think it was one of the scariest crashes we've seen in IndyCar in quite some time. And certainly because, first and foremost, the tire coming loose and making its way over the catch fence. We've seen a
Yeah.
lot of that. Through the grace of God, that tire hit a Chevy Cruze in the parking lot. Nobody was
Yeah.
injured or killed. Tim, I don't know about you. I was at Michigan in 1998, the US 500, when Adrian Fernandez had a crash on track. His wheel came loose, went in over the catch fence, killed 3 people, injured 6 others. Only thing
Mm-hmm.
I could think of when I saw that, and I saw it as it happened. It
Oh yeah.
wasn't in the replay or whatever. My heart was pounding. and my hands were shaking. I just couldn't stop thinking about that.
I'm with you. I was at MIS too, that same race, and wasn't far from turn four where it happened at Michigan International Speedway. So, yeah, that's I never even like when it happened live, and of course I'm watching on TV, so I watch it live. I didn't even see Kirkwood hit the wall. All I saw was the tire fly over the
Me
fence,
too.
and I was
Yeah.
like, miss the grandstands, which it did, fortunately. Then I'm like, oh, there's people back there too. But happy to say that no one was hurt on that. But
That would have happened
if
like
you
just to our right of where we have been sitting the last few years.
normally, yeah,
Yeah. We would have
exactly.
seen that
Yeah.
thing come over.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
We would have
And
seen that tire.
yeah, a lump gets in your throat when you see that sort of happen because you're
Hmm.
like, oh, this is not going to be good. So fortunately, no one was injured. Apparently, the tether did not break, so whatever the
Yeah.
tether is tied to must have broken off the car. Um,
They said it has
so
a
just a fortunate
22,000
scenario.
pound test, which is quite a bit of
Yes.
force.
Yeah, that is quite a bit of force. But when you're traveling at speeds of 230 miles an hour, man, there's gonna be a lot of inertia and a lot of stuff happening. Um, but I think the important thing on this caution is that it happens when you would expect people to be pushing 100%. You got Grosjean's accident was like around lap 150. No reason to be pushing it that hard at that point to
No.
lose it. This happens at lap 185. 185 is an area where you've got 15 to go and you're trying to get to the front.
Yeah.
And so, uh, Rosenquist losing it there, I was sad to see that for him because he had
Me
such a
too. I was
great
so bummed.
month that I'd like to see him finish it off. But it's racing, right? It happens. You get in someone's wake, like um, what's his name did, Stingray Rob, then you get in that same sort of situation. And he almost held on to it. And then he had that suspension piece break, then he lost control of where the car would go because he was trying to keep it up against the wall. So when you come back across the track like that, it's something
You got to pray for the
bad can
best.
happen, and
Yeah.
something bad did happen.
Yep. Second piece of that, as you mentioned, Kirkwood riding the pavement upside down with sparks flying. It was crazy scary when you see that, and then you see the onboard of him. He kept grabbing his helmet. His visor was already up. He didn't know what to do with his hands. It was shocking, right? I mean, it had to be like a shock to him. Like, what is going on? What's happening to me? I think it probably happened so fast. Your brain really doesn't have time to catch up with what's happening all around you. And then I noticed today because I watched the replays of the crashes, and I noticed today after they got him right side up and he was still in the car, all of what the car, like the carbon was like cheese grating off as the car was riding the pavement, was all inside the car. It was all like built up on the padding inside and on him and everything else. It just a
Yeah, and
crazy accident.
I don't. It's sort of instinct, right? You just do things that I don't think you don't have time to react, right? It happens so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think he even remembers the impact. It's kind of one of those things that
No.
all of a sudden you're on your lid and you're going down the track, and I think the only thing you're thinking is, I need to get out of here, right? But it's still moving at quite a speed, and the sparks are going everywhere. But I couldn't believe he had the visor up either.
I know. So
That was
weird.
a surprise to me because I think you'd want to keep that down just in case something comes in the cockpit there. But
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody was okay with all these accidents that happen.
Or debris, right? I mean, that's the purpose of it. So, I mean, if some of that carbon is sort of flying around, you
Mm-hmm.
get some of that debris in there, catch your eye, or in
Yeah.
your lungs or something like that. You never know. I mean, you got to be super careful with that. So, I'm sorry, everybody listening or watching on you. I have so many notes for today's podcast. I don't know what to do with all this chunk of paper I got in my hands. So I apologize. I keep fumbling with this, but anyway, moving on. Cautions, that's our first red flag, which is certainly understandable. Cautions, however, breed cautions. Tim, next was the award situation where he was pressed low. He felt he was pressed low by Marcus Ericsson. I got to ask you though, do you think Ericsson could have given Award a little bit more room there? Or you think that
He could
was,
have, but it's the Indy 500. No, you don't give him any room.
so did he
It was
do
a
the
late
right
move.
thing, you think?
He, he
Ericsson
being,
raced him the right way.
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't think a Ward should have been there. That was the desperate move when in time you didn't need to make it,
I agree
in
with
my
you.
opinion.
In case you think I don't. I
So
agree
think
with
of
you.
this scenario. Think of this scenario. You botch a restart because you're going too slow. Don't know how to
Yeah.
restart on an oval. You almost do it the second time around, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, get in the short
Right.
chute and go."
Yeah.
And I'm screaming at the TV, like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then you get passed by two guys, which seemed to be the thing, right? If you're the third place guy, you're going to get around the two front runners. It just seemed like it was on the restarts.
They got the best
And
slingshot.
then it's
Yeah.
you do a desperation move into three. It makes no sense to me. You bail out of that and you take them the next time. You were
You come through
inside,
the front stretch
outside,
and you're there. Yes.
back to inside as you're already turning into the corner. And this already being Ericsson already turning in. Ericsson shouldn't have given it any more room than what he gave
No.
him.
I agree with you. I don't see that as dirty. I don't see that as anything Erickson
And they
that
touched.
anybody wouldn't have done. The situation there is, I believe that, that's 12 months of Award thinking to himself, what could I have done differently last year to win this thing?
Yeah.
And I
At
think
that
that
point, you
might have
still
been
have
what it is.
7 laps to go when that
Exactly.
happens. You
Oh,
still
absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
have time to pass the guys. So
Absolutely.
it was
And you don't want to
two or
lead.
like
He was in the perfect spot. Second or third, you don't want to be the one leading. You're 7 laps to go. You're in the best possible spot. You and the guy behind you.
yeah,
That's who you're racing.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I put that all on Pato. I don't put anything on Ericsson for that move.
Yeah.
That exit.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
So there
behind
comes your
this,
second. There's your second red.
yeah. So your second red, because behind this was a slowing Simon Pagenaud, who got rear-ended by, not by Pagenaud as it says in the notes, by Scott McLaughlin. And this finished, of course, Pagenaud's race, but McLaughlin was able to carry on with some repair there. Canapino was trying to take evasive action, lost control, and that was also a bizarre sort of situation where Canapino was rolling down. Obviously, brake line was severed. He couldn't do anything, but he didn't seem to hit or be going that fast, and that car came off the ground. I mean, it was yeah. That was one of the most bizarre things, just like rolling
it was bizarre for sure,
like a shopping cart through the Target lot, right? Boom, 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 boom. This thing's up in the air. That's where that is. It's just crazy. So
yeah,
red flag.
Obviously, he couldn't avoid the car.
Nope.
But I don't know. That was a bizarre situation.
I don't know
for sure. I don't know. And then Scotty messes up the front of his car pretty bad, right? The front wing was tore up when they showed the picture of that. So unfortunate for Pagenaud.
He got sent to the pit by IndyCar. Scotty did.
Yeah. So
and then Pagenaud was out. Canapino out.
Yeah, so those happened pretty much the same time, right? Same corner. And one created the other, right? Because everybody was checking up, and that's when you get Scott McLaughlin getting in the back of Pagenaud.
Yeah. That's lap 193 to 195. Then they red flag this thing again, right?
Yeah.
Gonna get it restarted, Tim. Cautions, breed cautions. It's funny, everything I saw today, they kept leaving Rahal's name out of this. Rahal was not the cause of it, but he was involved in this next restart situation on the front stretch. However, they don't also talk about Lundgaard. And it was Lundgaard on the inside in that pit wall, right? That separates the pit lane from the track where people used to crazy. People used to stand out there with the pit boards. And Lundgaard was all the way in there, caused a little bit of a ping pong effect. And that caused a situation with Rahal, Ed Carpenter, and then Benjamin Peterson, our eventual rookie of the year.
And to me, it comes down to a slow restart again.
Yes. Because there's no reason for people to go 4, almost 5 wide on the front stretch like that, unless you're checked going. Up. Yeah, you got to get moving.
Yeah.
Yep, you got to get moving on that. Cautions breed cautions. By this time, I had quite a few text messages. Chaos, I think, is how most people were summing up the subjects of these messages. and it was chaotic. But this is a fan-driven league. IndyCar is about racing. Chaos meaning I can't believe we're stopping this thing. What are we doing here? Yada yada. And to me, I look at it like IndyCar is about racing. F1 is not. Okay, you can text me, you can tweet me, you can comment and YouTube, whatever you want. F1 is not about racing. NASCAR is to a degree, but they've gone a little bit further introducing some gimmicks, right? With the stage racing and the let's cover, Bristol in dirt and, things like that. So I don't think that that's necessary. But IndyCar definitely wants to finish things, in a racing situation the best they possibly can. I also got a message from our buddy Gacker who was asking if this finish, and this was kind of at the end of this race, if this finish was something similar. Gacker is, of course, the Formula One guy.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to the F1 championship finish in 2021, the one where Michael Massey might have loosely interpreted the restart rules, leading Max to his first championship. I said it wasn't. I felt that it wasn't in the moment, and a couple of days later, which we are, I still don't think it was. Do you think it was manipulated finish, Tim?
It was. I don't know if it was manipulated. It was
engineered
going against.
Right, it was an engineered finish. They want to finish this thing under green.
Well, it was an engineered finish. Yeah, like I'm baffled by the final red flag. I'm totally still to this day, 3 days, 2 days later, or whatever it is. Why do you make that call? I think it's a bad call, period. It's a bad call. You don't red flag the race with 1 to go, 2 to go, whatever you want to call it.
You still needed
and you go around
to get out. Yeah. What I did
hear
2
to go
that I kind of agree with is they should have called that red flag immediately. And that came from, all the Twitter experts out there, right? The PhDs in red flagging, but also came from people like, Oriol Servia and James Hinchcliffe mentioned it. And these guys have been in there, and I sort of trust what they say. And I kind of agree with it. They should have red flagged it. If they were going to, they should have red flagged it immediately.
Yeah. I don't like manufacturing finishes. I don't mind a yellow finish.
I don't find it manufactured at all because you still had to do it.
Yeah.
You still had to get there.
Yeah. So I was shocked that they threw another red flag. And I felt the last 15 laps took an hour of the race. Like it was going on forever and ever. And did it make it more exciting? I don't think so, because you got 1 lap to really duke it out.
Trophy
it's coming from second or third place, the win, and that leader's not going to stay there, which, I guess you manufacture it at that point. So yeah, I
think Ericsson got a nice start, but he was not going to hang on to that.
He did get a nice start.
Second and third place, we're going to have to run into each other. We're going to have to run into each other in order for Ericsson to continue to stay ahead.
Yeah.
Because they were going to capture.
And I thought the other thing that this whole snaking down the straightaways, and
there has to be a limit.
It's a product of the car, right? Yeah. So in order to stay in front, you have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get passed. But to go way below, basically, you're entering pit lane, to go way below the new line they put in, this dotted line, which I would have thought it would have been a penalty to go under that during the snaking, but I guess that's not what it was. It was just a visual for the IndyCar drivers to know where it is. Did you see the one picture of how far they were over in the pit lane before they came back on the straightaway? I don't like it.
No, it's dangerous, right? I think we called it out last year as being super dangerous. There could be something happening there. I was surprised that IndyCar didn't create a rule, or at least tighten that up a little bit for this year. I'll be surprised if they don't going forward, because even on the backstretch when Marcus came out of turn 2, which, let's face it, again, Newgarden had Marcus in turn 2. He was not, that snaking wasn't going to do anything for him. Marcus hardly was behind him at all as Ericsson came down, and he came down almost like into that. If he'd have stayed straight, he'd been in the grass. Right. He came way down on that one and then was coming back, and then kind of had to dodge Newgarden because Newgarden was getting around him. at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
there has to be some limits on that. I think. I don't think you can continue to do that at the way you did it. Um, this, of course, and I appreciate your help on this section here. What we were talking about is in the pre-production meeting. If this had finished under yellow and not gone red, uh, we would have had 2 in a row for Ericsson, but second place for Newgarden, Ferrucci
Mm-hmm.
third, Rossi and Pillow rounding out your top 5 in fourth and fifth there.
Yeah.
Um, at
I
that
thought it
point
was
though,
over.
Tim, I
Did you think
can't.
it was over?
Uh, yes, yeah, I kind of did. The first thing I was thinking of was he's just going to win another race that has a red flag in it,
Yeah.
and then in my mind is everybody's going to be complaining that IndyCar could have done something and that this race shouldn't have finished under yellow. They threw all the
Nah.
other red flags. How come they couldn't do that there? There is no satisfying people 100% of the time in this
Yeah.
situation.
I agree.
I'm fine
And
with
I
the
don't,
finish.
I
I
agree
really
with
am.
you. Go ahead. You're fine with it. Yeah,
I
I'm
am.
okay with it. I just it just went against the precedent that IndyCar set for many, many years. And so I was just
Franchitti
utterly
has wins
surprised
under
they threw
yellow.
it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All of
Yeah.
Franchitti's wins are under yellow. He's a 3-time champion.
Yeah, there's been a lot at Indy under
Yeah.
yellow, but
Sure.
it's everybody just trying to get to the front right there at the very end and taking risks. They didn't take the whole race in order to make a pass, and
Yeah.
incidents are going to happen, and races are going to finish under yellow. That's just how it goes in my book. But looks like a new chapter is being written on how they want to end some of these. But the other thing that really stuck in my mind is it's dangerous too. You stacking
Mhm.
everybody up again to take another run at it. You're inviting more carnage, if you will, for somebody trying to make a bonsai move that isn't the right thing to do, right? So I don't know. I guess if the drivers don't care, then it's sort of up to the drivers talking to the series of, do we really do this, and do we put ourselves in this situation? I wish after the one incident, the first one at 185 with Kirkwood and Rosenquist, if it would have gone green from there on out, would have been great, because there would have been some really good battles. And Pato putting it down there and causing that other yellow, and then you have the slow restarts that caused the one on the front straight, which is weird to see that really happened right there on the front straight where it was.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I just wanted to mention real quick about the weaving is that all it reminds me, and I believe it was Kevin Kogan that hit that actuator when the car ripped
Mhm.
in two and slid in the pits and all that. That's the only thing that comes to my mind, and it's a pure
Sure.
safety thing
It's
that
inevitable. If we
just
keep
don't
doing
do
it,
it.
the
Don't
odds are
allow it. I don't know
better
why
that
you
it's going to
allow it.
happen. Yep. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. What I was going to say is if I could, wave a wand here and be in charge of IndyCar for, an hour, I would probably say that you have to have a restart zone, right? That you're just going to make it a designated restart zone. So you prevent some of this checking up in the back. This is the biggest field you've got all year round. It's the biggest race you got all year round. You got the most go under the go button that you have all year round. These cars are designed to go very, very fast on this track, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would designate a start zone, and if you can't get yourself started in that zone and bring the field down, then whatever the penalty is, right? You go to the back of the field or whatever. So you got to abide by it. The second thing I would do, and I'd probably do this first, to be honest with you, is I would designate a limit with how far you can come down to try to break that draft. Everybody knows you're going
Yeah.
to do it. It would have been funny actually to see somebody go out to the right instead of into the left. Everybody knows you're going to do it. It's going to happen, right? I mean, unleash the dragon. It's
Mm-hmm.
a phrase now. It's probably trademarked, and if it's not, somebody should trademark it. But I
Yeah.
think that's what they need to do is they've got to do they got to limit that, and they got to designate some restart zones. Put the cones
Yeah.
up on the fence, man. You just gotta. This is where you got to start, and this is it, and
Mm-hmm.
and get people to accommodate that. So I don't have a problem with this finish, Tim. I really don't. Getting into our Power Four rankings, and then we'll pick our own. The one thing I'll tell you is Joseph Newgarden, right? Finally,
Yeah.
finally in his 12th start, secures his place in Team Penske and Indianapolis Motor Speedway history. He'll forever be changed by this. He'll always be an Indy 500 champion. And
he drove a great race, and you're gonna outline it here to the people listening of why he drove a great race.
Yeah, he started in 17th place. He was the worst of the Penske trio. But just to kind of give you some perspective, now stay with me here. Lap 25, he was in 9th place. Lap 50, he was in 5th place. Lap 150, he was in 2nd. Lap 190, he was in 3rd. 195, he was in 1st. 199, he was in 2nd place. He was in contention all day long.
He was.
And I don't think that he was in certainly our talking points when we spoke last week, right? We had 2 guests on, and none of us had a Penske driver. And he wasn't in the talking points on NBC or anything else that I heard. Everything I heard was Ganassi or Arrow. Ganassi or Arrow.
Totally. That was the storyline.
That was the storyline.
And it was going to be Foyt and Ferrucci, right? Yep. Because that was a great Cinderella story to talk about. And then you also had to talk a little bit about Ed Carpenter racing. But
with VK.
You're right. Penske's were not in the discussion.
Last week, Tim, Spence, Brian, and I, we had 3 Pelots and 1 Rosenquist to win this thing. Right? No Penske. Mm-hmm. We had Santucci was you, Marco was Spencer, true dark horse, Kirkwood from Brian, and then I picked Rossi as my dark horse. And afterward was waffling like, I should have picked Power. Even going into the race, I had tweeted it and I had sent a text to Spence. I can't help but feel like today might be Power's day. Was not thinking Joseph Newgarden at all. Yeah.
I don't think anybody was, right? Just from a standpoint, you qualify 3rd out of the Team Penske, which is 17th, as you said. He's been there 12 times, hadn't won, or it wasn't going to be his 12th time. So he wasn't in the picture, which I guess we just kind of all overlooked it. And that's interesting. And I think when you do the lap breakdown, it shows that he was there the whole time, but he still wasn't part of the discussion, even in the booth, about who's coming through the field and what's going on. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that's how just under the radar they were, because they've been so bad, if you want to call it, the last few years there, ever since Rogers owned the track. So they weren't top of mind. It was all about the horse out front, right? So, when you talk about that, it's Ganassi and it's Arrow and being the powerhouses. And then you had a couple others mixed in there to kind of mix it up from 2 other teams that typically, one you don't typically see up there, the other one you do. So that was the storyline. And at the end of the day, Joseph did the job he needed to do to win, and the cards fell his way, right? That's what it comes down to at the very end. The cards fell his way.
Finally. Final question on Newgarden for you, Timmy. Is going into the stands a good idea?
I don't actually mind it. Honestly, I was really surprised he did it.
I was shocked and awed. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the
I don't mind it, but
or to take your phrase, which I love.
Cool. It's cool for the fans that were there. Obviously, it was mopped a little bit. I was, I'm like, what is he? Is he actually in the stands? I'm sure it's a great experience for those that were right there at the start finish line and paid the price to be there and got to see the winner and come in the stands with them. That's fun. I wish you would have walked around the whole place. It would have taken all day.
They could have interviewed everybody and then come back to them. So you could hear them saying, though, we got to get you back. We got to get you up on the stage, right? That's what they got to do, because they got to do all the rest of that stuff. They got to do the wreath, the milk, the kiss, the ring,
there's protocol,
all that stuff. So, McLaughlin started and finished 14th. Never in play. He was never in play against his bus bro, that's for sure. I'm kind of surprised he didn't have a better race. I mean, we did talk about he got caught up there at the end, but even then, he wasn't in contention for anything. He was still, battling midfield at best.
It was just
surprised you.
Around. Yep. I think so a little bit, but I didn't think any of them were in contention to win this race. That was my thought going into the race, right? I think it was just like others. I asked in the last podcast, I said, anybody think Penske can win from where they're starting? And I think you guys said yes. And I was like, It's gonna be a really tough order to do. So it doesn't surprise me that's what he did. Um, he's not an oval specialist, so that doesn't really surprise me.
No. Uh, if you would have said there's a Team Penske guy that's going to win this thing, I would have said it would have been Will Power. And Will, of course, he had the best starting position, but he has the worst finish in 23rd. He brushed the wall at some point coming out of 2, just that drift, either trying to take as much track as he could to not scrub as much speed, or he just couldn't control it out there. And Tim, that didn't look like a big deal. That really didn't.
No, it didn't, but at
Bent
those
it
speeds
enough
you
where
hit
the
anything, I think you're gonna
wheel
have
was.
issues, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess.
and his weight jacker was messed up, so that could have had something to do with the balance of the car over a stint, and you're not able to move the weight back and forth, and so
Yeah.
he sort of get hung out there, and he went high and hit it, and that was it. So, bummer for him for sure. Starting, he would have, like you said, he would have been the guy that you thought would have, been the one up front running with these guys based on qualifications.
Yeah. This is Penske's best finish since Roger bought the series and the Speedway. I don't know that any team puts as much emphasis on this race as Team Penske does. This is the 19th win for the captain. And if you watch the victory celebration, right, he's already looking for win 20.
Yeah, yeah.
He's already looking for win
I
20.
think they put a lot of emphasis on this. I think other teams do as well. I just think of Ed Carpenter Racing. They probably put the most emphasis on this, but from a resource perspective, they probably put the most resources into this just because they've got the budget to do so.
Yeah. Our power second team, and it's only by virtue of the second place finisher, because I think an argument can be made that this was still the power 1 team, and that's Chip Ganassi Racing. You got second place Marcus Ericsson. Timmy, some of the early comments from Marcus centered around the last red flag, and he felt it was unnecessary, unfair. I hate that word when it comes to things like this. It was unnecessary and unfair. I say early comments because his speech at the victory celebration was outstanding. He was very, very humble, and he was appreciative of the opportunity, congratulatory to Team Penske and everything that went on. But did you hear the early comments, and how did you feel about them?
I did hear the early comments, and they didn't bother me one bit, honestly.
You didn't think it was sour grapes?
No, I think it goes against precedent, and you go against precedent of what should that people that you expect to see, and it doesn't happen. And then,
Right.
Of course, you're going to feel like there was a reason why. I just think, like, if other people are leading this, does the red still come out? I don't know. I just don't know.
Don't even go there with that. Don't even go there with that. There's so much behind racing. You cannot manipulate a finish that much. You can put people into the situation, right? But Ferrucci had just as much of an opportunity to win this thing as Newgarden did.
I think
in
so.
Third place.
Yeah.
So they weren't. There was no.
No, I don't think they were trying to.
Rogers.
No, I don't think it was that. I think it was something else. But
what do you think it was?
I just think I saw something like, and maybe this is going way out of bounds, but if you got Kanan leading in that situation, you got Castro Neves leading in that situation, does it go red? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. And I'm not saying they're trying to fabricate who's going to win. I'm just saying they're like, let's give it another shot. Let's see how this kind of unfolds over one lap.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is one lap is not enough. It's not enough time to let the field sort itself out.
I don't know that I disagree, but I liked the suspense of it. I really did. I like the suspense of it because I hate the whole, well, let's give the cars proper time to warm up and let's bring our tires up to temperature and, all that other stuff. No, let's go out there. Trophy dash, right? Winner take all. And that's what it was.
I know. But is it the Indy 500 or is it the Indy 2.5 mile?
No, it's the Indy 500.
That's what you turned it into, a 2.5
No,
mile
we
race.
didn't. You had 497 and a half miles to get yourself into contention. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
So Marcus Ericsson. So fourth place, Alex Palou, everybody's winner pick, I think, right? This would have been a different story had Palou not been hit by VK on pit road. He was without a doubt the class of the Ganassi team this year. In fact, I said to my bride that if Marcus wins this, I he wouldn't be the third best Ganassi car that won this race like he was last year. He would have been the second best Ganassi car to win this thing.
Hmm.
Um, because by far Palou had the better car of that group. Um, and I think he had it in hand up until that mishap with VK. Tim, I don't understand
Yeah,
that mishap with VK. Um,
I don't
that's
either.
twice, right? We
That's
saw it with Legg as well. Catherine Legg had the same situation.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what that is sort of
I'm
how
sh-
that sort of transpires. I
Differential
don't
and
know if it
camber,
has to
right?
do. Yeah, I think you're trying to get mechanical grip in the corners, and so
Yeah,
one wheel's pulling one differently than the other. So that's why they both took a hard left because you're trying to
yeah,
turn left in the
yeah.
corners. So I think it's a product of the car setup, and you don't have that on a road course. You don't have that on a street course. So I think it's just a little funky, and plus you're trying as hard as you can to. It's the Indy 500, so you're putting everything out there, and you're prone to make mistakes just because you're going a little bit over than what you normally do. So I think that's a product of that, I believe.
Yeah. I agree. I just they know it's happening though, right? So, but what do I
I
know?
know, and it
I've never
ruined
driven a
two
car like
two
this.
guys' race right there.
Hmm. Yeah.
Pelot came back for fourth, but was never battling again for
Imagine how good that car was.
the
They ended up
lead.
finishing fourth anyway,
I know.
right?
Think of the last 15 were green.
Yeah.
Where would he have been? Like, could he have
Yeah.
gone carved through the rest of the field? There was a lot of stop and start, stop and start. So
Potentially,
you
yeah.
don't have the driver to be able to get through and do what they
Yeah,
need
the
to do with the
momentum,
car
right? The
with the
continuing
machine
momentum.
that they
Yeah.
have under them.
Yeah. Dixon finishes sixth place. Dixon's setup, I think, was a little off right from the beginning. He had a huge vibration in that first stint, which
It's
Tim,
terrible.
I've been
Oh my
watching IndyCar
gosh.
racing for a long time. I don't think I've ever seen an IndyCar shaking like that at full speed due to a blistering tire or some sort of
Yeah.
setup situation. Have you?
No, I've not. Not at all. I think the car that I saw bounce the most was Connor Daly's NASCAR at
Yeah,
the
at the 500. Yeah,
yeah. Then I was like,
Daytona 500. Yeah,
I've never seen that. And then Dixon has a similar situation, not as bad, but
yeah,
it could be as simple as one of the wheel weights came off. You never
hmm
know.
yeah, certainly. I thought of that as well. Was that looks like a balance situation? Could be a situation where the
Hmm.
balance there is bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Didn't tape it on good enough. Who knows?
yeah, I don't know that Indianapolis Motor Speedway will ever grant Dixon another victory. And I say that from the perspective of, all week we kept hearing Tony Kanaan saying, this place chooses the winner. This place chooses the winner, right? And Dixon has won, and he has 6 championships. I don't know that he'll ever get another one. Do you?
I don't know. He gave up two good opportunities. Uh, Not
Last year's
he
going to
had a good
haunt him
opportunity this
forever.
year, but last year and the
Yeah.
year before where he could have won the race. So last year was the one that still is going to bite him forever. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
saw
I
an
never say
interview.
never. So there's as long as he's in the race, he's savvy enough and fast enough that he could, but
Yeah.
it's tough, right? It's as we saw this past week, how tough it is to win the race
Yeah.
when you're that close and then it slips out.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Dixon where he said that he was overspeed by 0.6 miles per hour, right? 1 kilometer. That's
That's it.
unreal. Right. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It looked like a lot more than that based
It
on what we
did. Yeah.
saw when we
Yeah.
were there. But if that's all it
Point
was,
6.
man,
Yeah. The question really comes down to how much longer will he drive? And the car that he had last year was really once in a lifetime. This year's car was good, but
hmm
everybody seems to be getting better. We have no reason to believe that Arrow McLaren won't continue to develop and bring super strong cars to the 500 next year. If all goes according to what everybody thinks is going to happen, you're going to have Palou in one of those orange cars next year too, and he's going to bring
hmm
some tribal knowledge out of Chip Ganassi Racing with him,
yep,
and Penske will continue to develop and potentially Foyt will continue to develop, and Ed Carpenter will continue to develop. So everybody's going to be developing at this point. So, where Ganassi will continue to as well, but I think that dominance that we saw in 22, I think that situation is over.
Yeah, you got a good point with all those, and time will tell here. I don't know how long he's going to be in a car. I predicted if he won the championship or the Indy 500, he would have been gone, and he's still around, and he says he wants to stay, but
yeah,
he hasn't been the fastest car over the last 2 years in a lot of these events, which historically
not the fastest
he's
car
always
in the stable either.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Out of the four. This year you have four really good quality entrants out of Ganassi. Everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
they were stacked. And to your point, they could have been number one, right? But
yeah,
it's
easily,
based on how they finished.
Yeah.
And you look at their results here, man, they were good, just not on top.
Yep. 2, 4, 6, 7. Seventh place goes to Sato in a limited effort, right? He ran Texas, he ran IndyCar. This is probably going to be his last race of the season. I don't know about the rest of the ovals, right? It sort of seems to be TBD. It's not a sure thing that he'll be in there, but
I think the other Marcus is going to get his turn.
I think so too.
I think Armstrong. Yeah,
I think so too, and he's deserving of it. The kid's good. The kid's very good,
really good.
Yeah. So 7th place, part-time effort. Sato popping in and doing this is kind of I hate these moral victories, but kind of a moral victory, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he had a good day. He stayed out of trouble, which is, they all had a solid run. All had good runs. And Palou had a run that would have been much better, I think, obviously, if he wasn't involved in that incident. So, Ganassi comes out of this, I think, holding their head high. And, you just missed by one place. Yeah. So be it. Just the way it works.
Out of all the Power 4 teams, this is the only team with 4 drivers in the top 10, with all their drivers in the top 10.
Yeah.
Because Arrow didn't do that. Yeah. And we're not even going to get there next. We're going to get to AJ Foyt Racing, 3rd place, Tim, Power 3rd. Tim, there's something right with IndyCar racing when AJ Foyt Racing is contending for a win at Indianapolis. I think you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not passionate about it though myself. Like personally, I'm not passionate, but I think it's good for the sport and it's good for people that have been around a long time and have watched AJ Foyt and know the Foyt story and all that.
I just don't want AJ Foyt Racing to be a field filler, right?
Yeah, I don't either. And they have been for a long time, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, long time. Yeah. And that's the thing. I've been hard on this team, right? In fact, I would tell you that this team, a couple other ones, are probably really the reason why I changed the format of the show to this Power 4+1 deal, because once you get past, the top 4 or 5 teams in a race, it's the same people at the bottom that we were talking about. What are you going to say? Right? Kirkwood crashed out. Kirkwood seemed like he gave up. Dalton Collette, he crashed out, seemed to have given up. They didn't put a car under. It was the same thing week in and week out last year. So it was like, I'm done talking about this. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
So 3rd place for Ferrucci, the guy had a ton of emotion when he emerged from that IndyCar at the end of this race. I might have changed a little bit of my perception of Ferrucci, who I'm not on the Ferrucci bandwagon. You are. You've been on there for a while. Tell me about that. What am I missing about this kid, Tim?
I just like guys that can drive and guys that can drive anything. And so that's what it comes down to. It's about what you do inside the cockpit that I sort of watch and sort of pick up on. And I always thought he was a good racer. So, and I felt he got run a deal on a few things. And so, you make changes and you move on. And I think people should give you a shot. And he had a great shot here and he did well with it. And his record, his driving record proves that he should be in a top car.
Yeah. I'm anxious to see what they do the rest of the season. That's for sure. But just looking at the 500, he has 5 top 10s in 5 tries. Obviously, there's no shortage of talent here.
It's good.
Right? No shortage of talent, no shortage of courage when it comes to this. Right?
Nope. You're
So,
right. He doesn't have a shortage in either one of those areas.
right. So maybe a little unfair, right? That others, have continued to judge this kid on some indiscretions while racing in Europe in 2018. 5
Hmm.
years later, a man has a lot of growing up to do, I think, in that 5 years. And, maybe he has. I don't know. I don't see him from week to
Yeah.
week. But
People
I think
change.
it's starting. I think we have to start taking notice. If this
Yeah.
continues out of Ferrucci at AJ Foyt Racing, I think we have to continue to
Yeah.
take notice. Yep.
I just wonder what kind of momentum you come out of this, and how can you get coming to Detroit now in a street course? How do you take what you learn? And it just that maybe it's just morale, right? And how do
Yeah,
you?
finishing 20th and 25th in Detroit, 20th and 25th in Road America, I think for this team is going to be a disaster.
Yeah,
It
you
erases
can't do
everything.
that. You got to
Yeah.
have top 15s, top 10s if you're lucky, right? But get
Yep.
up there and battle and do something. So we'll see.
Yeah. 21st place, Benjamin Peterson, your Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, was taken out in the final incident with Graham and Carpenter and, Lundgaard,
Yeah.
who, got away with it. Still the highest starting rookie in the year, fastest rookie ever, right, to qualify at the Indy 500. 11th place start. And who was he right in between? Ericsson and Will Power.
Wow. Yeah. He
So
deserved it.
good on
That
him.
was
Oh
well
yeah,
deserved.
yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts. You know this,
Hmm.
and I was listening to podcasts where the topic of Ferrucci being able to win this 500 would come up a lot of times, and I would say that nobody questioned his ability necessarily, but I would say that they questioned more the team's ability to be flawless over 5, 6, or 7 pit stops.
Hmm.
Lo and behold, we have a pit incident with the 14 car where on that tire change, one of the tires rolled out of the pit box, right? That was it was a minor penalty that was issued. Kind of back to what you said. If it weren't AJ Foyt, would it be? And it weren't a car that's contending, would it be a drive-through or would it be monetary? Because AJ Foyt Racing got a monetary penalty for this tire coming out. I will tell you, it wasn't very egregious, right? It was probably one revolution out of the pit box, but it was in
And the
breach
guy
of the
had his
rule
hand on it.
nonetheless. Yep. It was
Hmm.
in breach of the rule nonetheless. It was out of that box. And that was a gift. In my opinion, it was a gift by IndyCar to just give them that monetary fine as opposed to a drive through or anything else that would have taken him out of contention. But I think it's the right thing to
Yeah.
do. I'm not even going to ask because I think you agree. I think it was the right thing to
I
do. I don't think you make a big deal about it.
I agree. It was the right thing to do. I know you're not asking me, but I'm going to tell you I agree. And I think the other thing, they were decent on pit stops, but I felt
Yeah.
like every pit stop cycle that came up, they were one or two cars further back when they came out. So it wasn't flawless in the stand. They weren't as quick as the other teams. They were okay, but the driver had to get back through the field to get the couple positions they lost. What I saw, and I'm sure it wasn't every pit stop, but the pit stops I saw, he came out a little further back, and then work
Yeah.
his way up.
I didn't put this, but I have to address this. This was the exchange with James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell. I've had my fill of Townsend Bell, by the way. But Townsend was, oh, that tire wasn't out of the box. Yes, it was. Look at it. Townsend, it's out of the box, right?
Yeah.
Being argumentative just for the sake of being argumentative is not right. Is not interesting. It's not compelling. It's just
You
ignorant.
tweeted this, didn't you?
I did. And I have to say it, right?
Like I've
But,
heard this before.
but of
I
course,
read
what
it.
happens, Hinch plays right into it, right? By arguing back with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so unnecessary. So unnecessary.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you on the whole Townsend thing.
Well,
But
amen. Because you haven't been on my side about anything today.
well, we can agree to disagree on a few things, but
Thank God,
I've been
actually, we
over
had to bring
that before.
two
I was,
guests in last week to break us up a little bit because we'd start agreeing on too
yeah,
much.
Yeah, I was done with Townsend when they let Paul Tracy go. I'd rather have him in the booth than
Yeah.
Townsend, but that's just me.
Arrow McLaren. I don't want to see Paul Tracy either. I think it'd just be Hinch and Duff and Lee Diffie. So Arrow
I
McLaren,
like 3.
power fourth. A lot of optimism for this team heading into the 500, and really for good reason. Tim, they have 2 former winners in their cars with Kanaan and Rossi. And sure. 2 guys that are really ready to take that next step with Award and Rosenquist. So I think they are moving in the right direction. They're definitely investing in the team. And I think that this team, having added so much extra personnel, has really not skipped a beat. They've taken that next step, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it, the Award wreck already. We talked about the Rosenquist wreck as well. But it bears repeating, both Award and Rosenquist would have been in the mix, I think, in the final few laps of this thing had they not been taken out earlier in the race. But you got to get there, right? And that's just the name of the game. Kanaan didn't seem to really have much to give his teammates. He didn't have the car under him that the rest of them did. And this was his final race. You buy that from Kanaan? This is it.
Yes, I buy it.
I buy it this time. Yeah, I agree with you. I buy it this time.
I buy it. Yeah. You finished 16th. I think I almost want to say I think the car had a little more in it, but
you do?
That's probably maybe that's just me going way off base on this.
What do you think he was doing? Sandbag? And what do you think he was doing?
I don't know. He was enjoying his ride.
Trying to drift back so he can have one final run with Elio. I'll tell you what, Kanaan, maybe he did, and maybe he knocked it out when he took that trip through the grass. That trip through the grass took my breath away.
Wow.
And as stiff as you would think that these Indy cars are set up, the way that rebound from that rear suspension on that car was like shocking to me. When it went, and he held it.
He sure held it all together. That looks like an instant spin to me if you go through that, but he just pointed it straight and must have stayed on the gas because he still passed the guy.
He never let it go. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that.
No, I don't think unless you did a track inspection and said, this is my move, this is where I can make it. I know I can get a little more of the track over here on the grass. I can make it happen. Anyway.
Crazy talk. Rossi, 5th place. Tim, that's a big deal. And I say that for the same reason I talked about after the Indy GP a couple weeks ago. This effort is coming together nicely. I hate to say the gelling, right? You always tell me that.
Oh my goodness.
And I think it's well ahead of schedule.
Thinks it's a good deal, like right? a big deal.
I think it's a big deal. Rossi, on the other hand, does not. He was, quote, annoyed and disappointed. How do you see it?
Same? I would be annoyed and disappointed too. Yes.
Why?
I agree with Rossi. You're not in the Indy 500 to finish 5th. You've got one of the fastest cars in the field, and you're coming 5th. That's disappointing.
Highest finisher of that team.
Well, 2 took themselves out. So, in my opinion, 2 took themselves out.
Well,
so
Award took himself out, right? Rosenquist was a victim of,
that's true.
Aero racing. 5th place, Rossi, annoyed and disappointed. Tim agrees. I don't. 16th place, Tony Kanaan, amazing career. I believe he's staying with McLaren in an advisory role. I believe I've heard that. Something similar to Franchitti with Ganassi, but also, started way back when with Rick Mears at Penske. And one real quick thing, Tim, let's take back some history. Do you remember those red Tasman Indy Lights cars with Kanaan and Castroneves at Michigan?
I do. No.
They had Marlboro on them, but they had other sponsorship too, but they were all red and they had a Marlboro sticker on the side of them. I remember them at Michigan. Castroneves with the dash and Tony Kanaan. All right, hyphenated.
I'd have to go back. I got to do some digging. I'll have to look on.
Castroneves finished 5th. Maybe higher, but Kanaan. I looked it up earlier. Kanaan finished in the teens somewhere.
All right.
I figured you would remember that because we would have been there. Tim, who power 5th team? You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Before we do the PTI rundown?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm having a hard time with power 5th. I'm gonna maybe mail this one in by just picking Ed Carpenter Racing, right? It's the 5th team in order. 8th place from Connor Daly. was a gift, right? Because that car was no good. He said he said in the
Hmm.
victory celebration that they bolted on VK's setup and he just held the pedal down. So, he was able to finish that thing out. Another gift was VK in this 10th place after this pit issue with Pelot. I don't
Hmm.
understand that happening in two cars. And but he was able to bring that car home in 10th place, which I mean, really is not a bad finish because it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, the hit that VK and Pelot had in the pit looked worse to me than Power's hit on track. And Power was
Yeah.
out. And these guys carried
Yeah.
on.
One's
And
at
Carpenter
speed,
was a
one's not.
victim, 20th place. Now I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you give me your Power fifth, but I'm going to tell you this. They are my Power fifth, and it's only because I wanted to make this case that Able Motorsports and RC Enerson deserve to be that Power fifth team because they're a one-car team in a one race effort, right? Using an
Hmm.
Indy Next team to put that car
Yeah.
together and put this whole deal together. And
Yeah.
RC Enerson made it into this field with none of the drama that Ray Hallerman Lanigan had, and they've got vastly more resources than Able Motorsports and RC Enerson's folks do, right?
Yeah.
Putting this effort together, and he was firmly in the field. So Power fifth because Carpenter had a good finish, and I like VK, but Power 5A to Able Motorsports and RC Enerson.
Did you say he's comfortably in RC Anderson? They qualified 28th, so it wasn't like
He
they were way
wasn't in the
up.
last row shootout.
He was not, but he was
Comfortably
very
in.
close. He was close.
He could have slipped
Um,
one more spot and still been
yeah,
comfortably in.
I guess. I don't know if
You
you
know who
call
was
that
very
comfortably.
uncomfortable on that? Lundgaard, Legg, Ray Hall, and Harvey. They were very uncomfortable.
Their entire team,
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. So yeah, so my Power Five, I'm in agreement with you. It's Ed Carpenter
Is
Racing
it?
for all the reasons you mentioned, and one that you didn't mention, which
Oh,
surprises me, and that would be that I think you have to take
so
into
detailed.
account qualification too when you take your ranking, because that's like the race
Oh, sure.
within the race,
Huh?
and you qualified just off the pole, so the team came to play, right? So Rena starting second, they did their thing. If it wasn't for the incident that we've already talked about, they would have been in the hunt at the end. Renus would have been in the hunt and just didn't get there. So unfortunate, but they had a great month. I think coming out of this, they'll hold their heads high and they'll come back next year and give it another chance here. But they're my Power Five team as well.
Yep. And shout out to RC Anderson and Able Motorsports.
Yeah, because I was wavering on that one too. I was not. There was no wavering on that at all. So yeah, I disagree with you on that one. Excuse me.
That's funny.
Oh
All
Lord.
right, we got to get in the odds and ends. I'm at some point I got to stop referring to this as the PTI section because we're going to get a letter from PTI probably, right? Somebody will hear this.
Yeah, I don't think we go fast enough either.
Yeah. The odds and ends section, second largest crowd in 2 decades, 330,000 people, which apparently is shy of the attendance for the 100th running, which I don't know how many people were there, but obviously more than 330,000. Tim, I need your thoughts on this. Newgarden is not leading the championship standings. That stays with Pelot. Consistency is what led Power to his championship last year, even with Newgarden winning 5 races. Newgarden now has 2 wins this season so far and is 4th in the championship due to 17th, 9th, 15th, and 7th place finishes in races he did not win. Pelot's worst finish this season, 8th. And all that's courtesy of our buddy Spencer from IndyCar1909.com. But I need your thoughts on this.
It shows you that consistency pays off. So as Newgarden said in some of the other finishes, that they need to clean it up and they need to do better in the races that they're not in the hunt to win. And you just proved it with those stats from Spencer. So that's good stuff. And I think this is going to hoist him into the position to take this championship and to get good finishes throughout the rest of the season. Now that you've got the month of May behind you and you're moving forward and going into A lot of circuits that Penske's been traditionally strong at.
Yeah. Prize money for this year's 500 was a new record, $17,021,500. Of that, the winner's share was $3.666 million. That's a lot of cabbage, Tim.
Yeah, it's not bad.
A lot of cabbage. Marco Andretti, I can't let this podcast go by without mentioning Marco because you're such a Marco fan. Marco Andretti's 17th place finish was a miracle. If you listen to his radio, he had some expletives talking about how difficult it was for him to drive and maintain 30th place early in this race. Tim, I've never driven an IndyCar, but I would suspect that coming in once a year to run the fastest race on the calendar, the one that everybody puts all of the effort into, it's got to be exponentially harder than anything else. Why continue to do this? He's not doing it for
I
the money.
only have one. I only have one reason. Your dad owns the team, so you must have come out and race, and it's the
And your last
Andretti
name's Andretti.
name. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the only reason. It's the only reason you come back.
Yep.
It'd be imagine if he would win, and I don't think it's going to happen. But just imagine that would be
Big deal.
Andretti wins again after last victory in 1969.
Yep. I was there when he was leading and he got overtaken by Sam Hornish at the end there.
It's his rookie season.
Yep. I was there for that.
That close to winning.
Yep.
The Dragon wasn't invented by then.
No, they didn't do any of that, right? It was just pedal down and prayed.
Yep.
How in the hell does Herta get released from his pit stop right in front of Roman Grosjean? How in the hell does that happen?
I have no idea. That's ridiculous. I couldn't.
And I talked about AJ Foyt racing, right? Everyone was like, well, it's going to be really difficult for Santucci to win this thing because, Foyt, the pit stops are going to have to be Wouldn't you think that Andretti would have, right? That should be pretty clean.
Yeah. That was really bad. You see the car coming, you know what car it is, they're coming in right
Everybody
in front of
in the headphones knows it's their car coming in.
Yeah. Terrible.
Right? I don't understand how that could even possibly
it's
happen.
Unacceptable. It should not happen.
It is. Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan's Indy 500 to forget finished with Jack Harvey in 18th place ahead of his much celebrated teammate Christian Lundgaard in 19th place. Leg had a bizarre situation we talked about, exiting the pit that effectively ended her day. I don't really know why. Maybe she broke something in that sudden on off or whatever it was, but she never made it back. She was 33rd place. She had a weird interview on the victory celebration. Graham, not necessarily a teammate in this race, but he finished 22nd. His name just happens to be on the building. The best thing that can happen to this team is significant rebound in Detroit and then in Road America. And what do I say is significant? I would say top 15 start and finish for all three. Nothing worse.
Yeah, I think Road America is going to be telling because they were really good at the road course, at least on qualification pace. Over stint, they didn't look so good. So that'll be the one that I think really shows if they're back or they're not back and what's really going on in that team. I don't expect a whole lot out of Detroit, but I guess we'll see.
During the victory celebration, Jack Harvey said, and I'm quoting because I kept going back to make sure I got it right. He said, the good news is we're going to try and come back next year. We have a year to try and get to the bar you guys, and he was referring to Team Penske, that you guys set. Does this mean he's coming back for another year at RLL?
Seems like it. Did you get that feeling?
I did. I got excited by it because, Andretti was listening to the show when I said they needed to take Brian off of Colton's pit box. I've said now for 2 shows that Harvey deserves another shot at Rahal. So maybe they're listening to the show too.
So it's attributed to you and the show.
Yes.
That Harvey's got a ride next year, we believe.
I'm his biggest advocate, dude. I'm right. I got the Hy-Vee jersey and I got the You Don't Know Jack shirt. So
and he wouldn't sign an autograph for you.
Pissed me off. And Zach Brown can't help himself, right? Saying he was surprised that CGR doesn't have the, quote, commercial confidence to sell an Indy 500 winner and a title contender. He was, of course, wading into Ericsson's contract situation with CGR. Tim, do you feel it's likely Ericsson will come back to
Yes.
Ganassi Racing?
Yes, he'll be back.
50-50 to me. maybe
All
at
right.
best.
We'll see.
According to our buddy
You
Brian,
can't let him. You can't let him leave. He's second in the
I don't
championship.
know how you let
Just
all
won an
these
Indy
guys
500
go,
for you. Almost won a second one.
right? I don't know how
He's
you
not
guys
going
let these
anywhere.
guys go. Yeah. According to Chef Brian, Indy or at 500 Indy 1911, Newgarden would be third if double points were still in play, and he'd still be trailing Pillow and Erickson. So, as far as I'm concerned, and I think anybody else, puts that thing to bed once and for all.
Sure does.
I need more texture on this. 107th Indianapolis 500 averaged a total audience delivery of 4.92 million viewers across NBC and Peacock. This is up 2% versus the 2022 race. Best viewership in 15 years, Timmy. And they had an audience peak of 5.8 million viewers from 4 to 4:15 in that 15-minute window for the finish. Final ratings coming up later this year. What I did see was that this is a 13 share, best share that they've had in, a decade and a half or what have you. And the reason why the 13 share is a big deal is because there's 20-ish%, and I didn't write it down, so I apologize, 20-ish% less people tuning into things like this than there were 15 years ago. So even though it's a 15 share, it's still kind of a greater piece of that share. It's a greater number. So it's a win-win. That's a great situation for IndyCar, for NBC, and for Peacock. So good for them. So championship standings, Alex Palou continues to lead on his way to his next championship. Marcus Ericsson, second place. Pato O'Ward, third. Newgarden up to fourth place. Dixon, fifth. McLaughlin, sixth place. Rossi, seventh, which I'm shocked at. Not because I don't think he's talented, but I thought it was going to take a while for that team to get up and running. Eighth place, Grosjean, shocked at. Ninth place, Will Power. 10th place, Colton Herta.
Very good. Now it's all about the championship.
It is. It is now. If you didn't win the 500, it's all about the championship. So,
sure is.
Timmy, on to Detroit. You're excited about this.
Yes.
A couple of reasons, right?
I'm excited about Detroit.
We get to be insiders. There's one reason. You're excited about this track. You've got a lot of optimism about this new track.
I like the location downtown Detroit more than the layout of the track. And so for me, it's more about the atmosphere. It's about the restaurants down there. It's about just bringing it to the streets and bringing it back where Formula One was and IndyCar used to be. And, back in the day, going down to Detroit, or for me, it was going up to Detroit back in the day to watch the race. So I'm really excited. I enjoyed those races when I was younger and watching those on TV. So to be there, to be within the Rensen building, being insiders, the pit lane is going to be awesome too. The dual pit lanes that they have here, pitting on the left side or the right side. And the track layout, we'll see. It's got some long straightaways. I think it's going to be an interesting race. Obviously a lot of concrete, so we'll see kind of how the race plays out. And it's going to be slippery. It's supposed to be super hot, so we'll see kind of how it all plays out.
Yeah. I'm very tempered in my expectations of what the racing is going to be like in this race. We'll see what those long straights and, those tight corners kind of lead to. I think there's, some issue there. I worry about follow the leader on that.
Yeah. Did you, I kind of worry about that a little bit, but I think you have long enough straights to get passes. So I think that could, bode well. It's just a matter of when you use your push to pass, I think, in this race. And I think it's all about low speed cornering too, and how well you get out of those low speed corners. Because there's no really, from what I could tell, there's really no quick corners in this race. They're kind of all 60 to 90 degree turns. So, but I think there's other things to look forward to. Obviously, the racing is why we go and all that, but the Fan Fest area that's going to be in Hart Plaza is supposed to be really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. The general admission area is on one of the parking decks. So they're going to have a bunch of vendors up on the parking deck, and then people can be on the parking deck watching kind of a bird's eye view of the whole of the race. So that kind of gives me like a downtown feel, like you're in a high riser, but in Detroit, you're in a parking garage. So it is what it is. But that was very interesting as I was scrolling through and looking at all the ticket options that were available.
And you said that it's sold out, right?
It's
What's
sold out. Reserve seating on Sunday is sold out. So get a
so
general
get your
admission and
GA,
ticket.
yeah.
Yeah, and go and check it out. So it's going to be, I think it'll be fun. I hope the racing lives up to what I think it could, but I think just being downtown is going to be awesome.
We're gonna have to do a lot of walking. We got to take some pictures and put on our Instagram and our Twitter and everything. This new venue, this Hart Plaza and the general
Yeah.
admission areas, the pit road and all that. And I'm looking forward to that. I think we'll have a good time. It's our second time as credentialed members of the media because we missed the St. Pete thing because it got snowed in Detroit, so that was kind of a drag. But
And I
this
think,
should be fun.
yeah, I
Bring
think
your
the other thing to
sunscreen in
mention
your
is if
hat.
you, yeah, make sure you do. I think the other thing to mention, which is really cool about Detroit, and they do this, they did this at Belle Isle. If you have a ticket to get in the place, you can get in the paddock. You don't need
Yeah.
a separate ticket for that. And they're continuing that here in Detroit, which I thought they were going to close it off based on, just the layout and so on and so forth. But it's open.
And that is a mass of people amongst these teams
It's
trying to
good.
prepare
You get
these
up
cars,
close
right?
and
And
personal
there's
with the teams. Yeah.
yeah, IMSA and Indy next and IndyCar going on. So or not, is it IMSA that's gonna, oh God, see, there I go again.
Yes, it is. It's one of
Yeah.
the
All right, there you
IMSA
go.
series. Yeah.
But it should be fun. It really should be. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be super hot, but it'll be a lot of fun. I really
Yeah.
do.
So who you got, Dan?
I got the same guy for both.
No way.
I got the same
I've got
guy
the
for
same
both.
guy for both too.
Because I don't see a lot of passing here. I really don't. And I got
So who do you got?
Scotty Mack.
I got Scotty Mack winning the pole and winning the race. I have it
Do you
written
really?
down here. Yes, I got Scotty Mack winning from the pole. This is what I wrote down.
That's so funny. I love it. Cheater,
That
cheater,
is so
pumpkin
crazy.
eater. Here's mine for
Oh,
those on
man.
the YouTube. I got a lot of notes there.
Yeah.
I also
Look
wrote
at
down the
that.
handwriting
I
stuff in
could-
case you wanted to talk about that, but it never came up.
Yeah.
I know
If
I
we
have
could
so
share
many
my
notes in
screen,
my
I can
hand. I
see my
accidentally
notes.
printed the thing twice.
Oh my goodness. 6 pages, people. 6 pages times 2.
Yep. Plus the other stuff. I printed out the box score and all the other IndyCar stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You need to show some of the fans or some of the listeners, I should say, at some point your folder. That's like
I know. Yeah.
this. You got like a tree down there. That you
I
can
know.
print it
I gotta toss some of the things there and get them out.
out.
I don't know why I would ever need them. I can't throw them away. And we have it right here, memorialized in video and audio, the whole bit. So
Too funny. Yes.
Well, that's
we
all
have
I
digital
got.
Copies. Yeah, I'm good, Dan. It was a good Indy 500.
It was
There
weird
was a
not
lot of
being
Indy
there, but
500
I'm
actually.
okay.
What's that?
It was weird not being there, but I was okay not to be there.
I was I had a moment in the morning that I was like, why am I not there? And then I got over it. And then I got to the moment of, is this thing ever going to be over?
Yeah,
That was the other thought I had.
Yeah, I was also texting Lance, who was there. He's always there. And he was telling me that as the attendance was being announced, he still didn't feel like it was that crowded. He still felt that Coda was worse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you think about it, right, there's
It's a huge-
multiple entrances to Indianapolis Motor Speedway where Coda really is that one.
Yeah.
So you got to come in that one gate and you got to filter yourself out, within the track. And there's so much general admission area, and they sell that general admission area slammed with people.
Yeah.
And everything else that's going on. So I believe it. I believe that.
Yeah, there's so much more area at Indianapolis Motor Speedway just to spread out and do your thing. Even the Snake Pit had 25,000 people in it, like just
It was crazy.
doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah, it was crazy. That definitely makes me feel old when I see stuff like that.
It was great to see, like, all the way around the track, to just sea of people. When the grandstands weren't there, it was the infield and the hills full of people. It was just awesome to see. Really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed it. I got nothing else. I'm looking forward to a great Detroit. I'm looking forward to being right back here after Detroit, and then I think we'll get a little bit of time off, right, before Road America, which I'll be at.
I think
Not a
so,
member
yeah.
of the press, but I'll be just a fan. My tickets came today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, from Road
You
America.
guys will have a great time. I'm sure
Yeah,
you will.
looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast. So, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, be sure to engage with us on social media. As always, we'll try to get back to listener comments and all that other good stuff. Please continue to take a look at great content at IndyCar1909.com. Our web content partner, Spencer, puts a lot of things on there. He spent the month of May in Indianapolis, and he was completely immersed in it. He's got good stuff. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Good night.